Hip hop was good, man. It's your boy. If you don't know, it's Demi D, the go-getter, Mr. Everywhere, You Never There. First taping of our new show, Diggin Wit Deme, man, where we pull up, or you could come through with vinyl collectors, as you see. And we're going to have you display 5 pieces, and we're going to talk about ones that you just like, your show-off piece, and your prized possession, man. And I got my guy, first one on deck, international.
Welcome, man.
DJ Snips, man. We at BK, you already know. Thank you for having me, man. As you can see, you got a nice setup here, nice collection.
Yeah, man, I don't even want to tell you what it took to get this from London.
I can imagine, man. So before we get into your picks, just let the people know how long. Well, first of all, you're a DJ, so off top, you're already in the vinyl community.
Yeah, DJ and
producer.
Damn, I've been collecting somewhere between 25 and 30 years.
Almost as long as hip hop been out.
Wow, boy. I mean, I would say,
half the time.
Yeah. I mean, but I would say, I've been collecting since a little kid. I was having records bought for me when I was super young, 5, 6 years old. My mother would buy me 45s or whatever. But as far as me really being at a point where I'm spending my own money and I'm buying records and I'm going without food to make sure I have the latest 12-inch.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah, you don't trust me, man. That was, I would say maybe 95, 96 when I started to do that. Yeah, so about 25 years.
Dope. So would you say, before we dive into it, would you say that played a part in you being a DJ, or just coincidental?
Yeah, well, my thing was I always wanted to be a producer first. Okay. So I bought music because I wanted to listen to the music, but my first interest was trying to understand samples and stuff because my parents had records, and my dad would point out there'd be records I'd be listening to, he'd be like, oh, that's a sample of this or whatever. So
shout out to the people who do that too. I love that.
Yeah. And weird stuff as well, because especially growing up, if you're into hip hop, it's I'm only listening to hip hop and reggae. My dad would come in and be like, oh, this is a rock record.
Where they got it from?
And I'd be like, oh shit, I didn't think I liked that music, but then I'd start listening to the records that people were sampling, and it opened me up. That was always my real goal. I wanted to do that, but when I was looking at my favorite producers, the Pete Rocks, the Primos, and what, I started to understand that this all came from DJing, and the more you kind of delving into the culture and understanding how the whole concept of taking a break and looping came about, it made me then want to dive more into DJing and understand that. So even though the production kind of came first as far as what I wanted to do, the DJing was my segue into wanting to become a producer. So.
Dope. Shout out to that, man. Shout out to all you other DJs too who've been doing it. So the first 3 pieces is just pieces that you want to, showcase and talk about. So let the people know what's your first piece.
I'm going to say my first is this 12-inch, man. I mean, anybody that's even somewhat into hip-hop should know what this is. Conor Noriega, Illegal Life. This is a fairly random mid-90s 12, but the reason I picked this is I remember when I first got my turntables in 96, I was able to buy 3 12-inches, and these were the first, because I had records before, but I wasn't buying 12 inches. There's no reason to buy 12 inches if you're not DJing. You'd be buying albums, or you'd be buying 45s or whatever. So my first...
let them know in case they don't know what 12 inches is.
Alright,
that means pretty much...
Basically, you have 2 formats. You have the 12-inch format, you have the 7-inch format. Back in the day, the singles would tend to be on 7 inches, which is the smaller records, and the albums would be on 12 inches. But in the 70s, when disco DJs wanted longer versions of the 45 singles, and reggae DJs as well, there was the invention of the 12-inch single.
12-inch single, there you go.
So you really wouldn't buy a 12-inch single if you weren't a DJ. So my first 3 12-inches I remember buying was this, Tribes, Once Again, and Redman's It's Like That. And I bought those 3 12-inches. This included. This means a lot to me. Those other 2 do as well.
Legal Life, man.
Classic record as well.
Too.
If you can find the Stretch remix of LA, which is on a bootleg somewhere, then that's one to pick up as well.
Okay, what we got next for the people, man? I'm excited over here, man.
My next one, London Posse, Money Mad. Now I know a lot of the US viewers won't know this record.
Put them on.
So this came out in, I want to say 1987, and this was by a group called London Posse, who are Rodney P from London Posse. I would say is the closest thing that London has to a Rockin'.
Okay. What's his name again?
Rodney P.
Rodney P. Shout out
to him. The group was called London Posse. Actually, Tim Westwood produced this. So
shout out to Tim Westwood.
Most people know who
man.
Tim Westwood is. We won't get into the politics around
Yeah.
But yeah, so you know, obviously Westwood had been in the game for a long time. But Money Mad, this was like a reggae / hip hop anthem. I would say if we had a hip hop record that could be equated to Paid in Full,
okay, that's it.
It would be Money Mad.
Nice.
So big up Rodney P, man.
Shout out to Rodney P, man.
Good dude, man. Still active, still doing his thing. Really integral, important part of the hip hop scene in London.
Nice.
This is quite a hard record to find. So if you want an introduction to UK rap music at all, proper UK rap music, not the shit that is being fed to you guys now.
Shit.
This would be a record to start with. It's on a label called Justice, Money Mad by London Posse.
All right, now the last piece of the 3 talk pieces, what we got here?
I'm keeping it in the UK for this.
Okay.
This is by an artist called Doc Brown, featuring a rapper called Loki, called Donny's Lament. And the reason I picked this is because it's actually my first production that was pressed on vinyl.
Nice.
So we did this independently. It actually sampled, I don't know if you remember a record called Mad World by Gary Jules. Mm-hmm. It was a soundtrack to, what was that film? Donnie Darko.
Okay.
Yeah, soundtrack to Donnie Darko. You can still find this on Discogs. We didn't press many. There's like 300 of them. But yeah, that was my first ever production that was pressed on vinyl. So
nice.
this record
That's
means a lot to me.
special, definitely.
Yeah. Shout out to Doc Brown as well, who's actually a well-respected comedian and actor now in the UK. But a lot of people don't know he got his start as a rapper. So when I knew him, he was a rapper. Now he's a big time actor working with Ricky Gervais and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, big up Doc.
So those were the first 3. If you just want to run them down real quick for the people.
So we had Doc Brown, Donny's Lament, produced by myself, London Posse, Money Mad, 2 integral UK rap records, and Capone Noriega's Illegal Life, which was 1 out of my 3 that I picked, which were the first 12 inches I bought when I started DJing in '96, I want to say.
Okay, so we're moving on to the 4th piece now. Here's your brag piece, you know, to show to the other collectors. What we got here?
My brag piece, Honeysuckle Breeze by Tom Scott. I'm going to explain a bit about this record. I feel like anybody that's a collector already knows what this is. I mean, most serious collectors probably have a copy of this, and they probably will tell you how hard it was to find. I don't really do the sample snitching thing, but this is one where everybody knows what it is. It's been cleared, so, you know, we can do it. But track on there, Today, was the sample for Pete Rock and CL Smooth's They Reminisce Over You. Okay. So this is a classic record. It took me a long time to find this for a reasonable price. I mean, you can find one on Discogs for like $300 or whatever the fuck they're selling them for. But yeah, it took a lot of digging to get a copy of this. It's a crazy record as well, man. There's a few other samples on here as well. Actually, Pete Rock killed this record. I'm not gonna go into what. Yeah. But yeah, this is definitely a favorite of PR. But
so you other collectors, man, this is telling for real quick right there. Catch up, man.
Yeah. I feel like a lot the serious collectors, they're gonna have this, but they're also gonna know why this is considered such a grail. Right. You know?
That plays a part too, knowing that's the reason for the show, knowing why some of these records are important, even if it's not a hip hop record directly, but it might be part of the contribution to a big hip hop.
Most of my most prized records aren't hip hop records.
Right.
They're jazz records, they're soul records, they're funk records, rare groove records, because really the deeper you get into this, the more you realize that that's the ingredients.
Right.
You know? And those were the essential records that made everything else here possible. Without those records, you wouldn't have hip hop. Mm-hmm. You know?
So we're gonna get into the last piece, the prized possession of his one of them. I'm sure there's a lot. We got one of your prized possessions here. And you can let the people know why it's your prized possession.
So this isn't a particularly hard record to find, especially it's been repressed a million times. This is, I want to say an original pressing, but there were multiple original pressings of this. But this was a very, very early pressing, pressed in the UK. Miles Davis, Bitches Brew. When I was young, I used to play my parents' records, and the first 2 records my mother ever gave me, actually gave me, I can have them, was Greatest Hits of Al Green and this Miles Davis, Bitches Brew.
Davis.
Bunch of samples on here. I feel like, again, I'm not going to go into who sampled what, but
if you know, you know.
Yeah, if you listen to this close enough, you'll hear it anyway. But this is also just an incredible record, man. I mean, anybody that's into jazz, this is kind of, I guess if you think about what 3 Feet High or Paid in Full or Illmatic is to hip hop.
Definitely, or even like with Tribe stuff. Like.
Yeah, you would kind of equate this to the equivalent in the jazz world, you know?
Okay.
It's a... Yeah, if you ain't got this in your collection, buy it. Even if you can't get an original, just get a repress or whatever. This is a classic record.
Alright, so here you have it here for all my vinyl collectors, man. It could be you next I'm pulling up on. My guy, DJ Snips, man. Thank you, man.
Appreciate it, man.
Bringing us to your humble abode.
No, I
Giving us
appreciate
your
you guys,
story.
man. Thank you.
Stay tuned, man. Digging with Deme, man. We out
Most
here.
definitely.
Hip hop. Salute.